Battle of Riga. I am a ranger with 2nd Battalion 75th Ranger Regiment. And that is my story. It all started in 2022, when war in Baltics broke out. My company was immediately deployed to support Special Operations Command Europe. We fell under Combined Joint Task Force Latvia, which was hastily created to counter Russian invasion of Latvia. Russians took Latvians by surprise. They massed 3 armored divisions and pushed through the border trying to reach Riga, capital city of Latvia, within few hours. Only bravery of Latvian armed forces stopped them from reaching their objective. Needless to say, Latvian army was nearly wiped out in the few days of fighting. NATO Quick Reaction Force was way too slow to react, and they could only squeeze out a battalion of strikers from 2nd Striker Cavalry Regiment and 1 parachute regiment from 173rd Airborne Brigade from Italy. All in all, the task force of these 2 units was just reaching the Latvian border right when Russians were stopped by Latvians a few kilometers from Riga. Situation was getting desperate. Brits were able to somewhat quickly deploy a company of Royal Marines, but only thing they could have done was evacuate British Embassy, which is what they ended up doing. Latvian army was about 6,000 strong before the Russian invasion, but their ranks quickly diminished to about 1,000. Rest were either killed or wounded. Uncle Sam, however, wasn't completely asleep. Prior to invasion, 1 Special Forces company from 10th Special Forces Group was already on the ground training Latvian militias, and now they were only American guys on the ground. Latvian government quickly invoked Article 5 of NATO agreement, which meant all of the NATO members are now obligated to defend Latvia, but Russians knew what they were doing. Reaching capital city and seizing port would mean that there is no Latvia to defend. This was a lot bigger than just beef between Russia and Latvia. Well, as usual, European allies got quickly scared off by Russian nuclear rhetoric and deliberately slowed down deployment of its forces. Germany outright refused to get involved, and France was doing the same. Well, shit, that left couple of US brigades and Polish army that was not yet fully ready to go, with just about 77 Green Berets spread out throughout Latvia in 7 different locations, leading about 3,000 Latvian militias, and company of Royal Marines that was not exactly equipped for World War III. The odds, as you can see, were not in NATO's favor. Highways E77 and E22 were completely traffic jammed by Russian armor, which bought some time for US to deploy some special operations folks before big boys arrived with their tanks and artillery. We quickly loaded up our Humvees, and loaded onto C-17 Globemaster that flew us to Germany, where we were told by Saussure that we will not be needing Humvees, but we will need shit tons of javelins, that we received on the way out. We loaded onto another C-17 which flew us to Poland. You can only imagine how fucking exhausted we were, catching one flight after another, and we still had to arrive at our final destination. Most of us smelled like we spent 2 months on a World War II submarine. Anyway, there was no time for self-pity. We were picked up by 5 Chinooks, and we were flown at night to an army airfield hidden in the woods just right outside of Riga. Russians zeroed in on the airport already with a barrage of caliber missiles, destroying what was called Latvian Air Force. We dismounted the birds and just ran into a darkness. All of the light of the city were off, with random light here and there. We were met by some American dude wearing New York Yankees hat and a grunt-style t-shirt. He greeted us and introduced himself. "Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Captain Hindley, ODA 0121. I will be taking you guys over to our patrol base. We will brief you later." All 4 of our platoons were split and taken in a different direction, supporting different ODAs. At this point, all we wanted is to take a shower, get some food and get some sleep. But that's not how wars work. I remembered my experience in Ranger School when I was a young Ranger trying to make it through 2 months of hell. This was an awful close reminder of it. We were put in a bus and driven to location where the ODA 0121 had been quartered. Turns out it was actually sort of nice house that some rich Latvian dude abandoned when Russians invaded. Now it housed a small CP and 14 Green Berets with their Latvian militia leadership. So here we are rolling in 40 strong, about to fuck up this nice mansion with our gear and dirty bodies. Captain Hindley began briefing us. "You guys can take a shower. There are some Latvian Army MREs at the entrance. There is no hot water, so shower at your own risk, and there is only 2 shower rooms in this house. Be ready to receive a brief at 1400, after you guys get some sleep. Oh yay, do not go outside to smoke or whatever, Russian kamikaze drones can spot you and really fuck your shit up. Wow, what a fun place, we all thought. I was so exhausted that I just collapsed on the ground wearing my full kit and passed out. Fuck the shower and Latvian MREs. Our CCT also just collapsed on the ground without giving it a second thought. We woke up at 1300 because we heard some serious booms outside. Captain Hindley was looking out of the window and counting. Then he said, "Fuck man, that was only like 2 clicks from us. Their artillery is getting too used to firing without repercussions." Since we were already awake, our platoon sergeant told us to come down to a basement to see what we are going to do. Honestly, working with Green Berets was not exactly our thing. We are stormtroopers, they are teachers and coordinators. We usually do not mix. We do mission with Delta Force and SEAL Team 6, but not Green Berets. The guy that owned this mansion had a very nice movie theater in the basement, about 30 seats, perfect for small audience. Captain Hindley pulled out his secret laptop and connected to a projector. He then pulled up a situational awareness map that he was going to brief us with. Alright gents, as you can see, currently our situation is fucked. Russians are pushing to the west side of Riga and trying to seize town of Kharkiv, in order to enable 76th Airborne Division movement to seize east side of the city. We still hold all of the bridges across Daugava River, and those are key pieces of terrain that are of a huge interest to Russian commanders. We expect that 315th Battalion Tactical Group will attempt to seize the most southern bridge within next 72 hours. So that's where you guys come in. I need you to link up with 5th Militia Company and work with them and assist them in defending it. If bridge falls to Russians, the war is going to be lost. Our platoon leader linked up with Captain Hindley and got all of the imagery maps of the area, along with some terrain analysis. Latvia is full of forests and swamps. That kind of terrain always favors a defender. Given a company of semi-trained Latvian militias and platoon of rangers, the task was more than doable, at least by the book. There was only one huge problem: we had no artillery, and even air support was still very unclear. We could only use our 60mm mortars and javelins, which meant that we would have to position on the east side of the Daugava River, and that was a problem because only way to withdraw would be across that bridge. Our platoon leader, Lieutenant Rogers, wanted a squad of rangers on the east side, armed with 3 javelins, along with a platoon of Latvian militias, but Captain Hindley told him that was a fucking suicide. He recommended that we push deep east and try to engage Russians prior to them even getting to the bridge. The combat controller can coordinate for some A-10 runs to hold off a first echelon of attack and then hit the rest of them with javelins, as armor will get stuck on the road and present a great target. The catch is that this whole thing would have to be done at night. Russians didn't really have a good night vision capability, so that factor had to be exploited. Our PL finalized a plan. Our whole platoon would infiltrate into a gray zone at 2200 and be in position no later than 0300. We should be able to get a visual on Russian assembly area. From their CCT will request 2 F-16 sorties to drop 2 500-pound JDAMs, and 1 A-10 sortie to do a gun run along the road, where Russian armor is lining up. After that it was all javelins and mortars. In the military it's called spoiling attack. It's where you attack an attacker before he begins any movements. We had a 18-kilometer movement ahead of us. We had to carry everything with us: M240B, spare ammo, javelins and javelin rounds, MREs and water, of course. All of our packs were about 100 pounds. After we loaded up, we had a Latvian militiaman going with us to guide us where the Russians were using most concealed route. We loaded up on some civilian trucks and left at about 2100. We had to drive without lights, but Green Berets provided us with a driver who knew how to do that. We stopped about 1,000 meters from the bridge. On the other side of the bridge there was a gray zone, meaning nobody was controlling it. Our biggest fear was running out of Russian scouts, but Captain Hindley assured us that Russians didn't have enough infantry to push this far, He was certain that they only have a capability to observe the bridge, and that's about it. Our biggest problem was crossing that bridge without casualties, as Russians can unload some serious indirect fire on it as we are crossing. We decided to sprint through it, but sprinting with a 100-pound rucksack could be problematic. Luckily, most of us are in pretty good shape. We walked up to a bridge to get initial eyes on it. It seemed quiet. There was debris and some barriers on both sides of it, nothing out of ordinary, but we could distinctly hear something in the air. We assumed that it was Russian Orlan UAV observing the bridge. Indeed it was, but it was too late to pull back now. If we quickly run across Russians, artillery should be able to react that fast. At least we thought that to be the case. We got ready and ran as fast as we could. The bridge suddenly got a lot longer and packs got a lot heavier as we were running. By the time we reached the other end, we were all pretty spent, physically. So far 2 squads made it across. As the 3rd squad started running, we heard distant booms. Fuck, they saw us. We began hearing distinctive sound of a 152mm artillery round. First volley of rounds completely missed the bridge, landing in the river, but couple of rounds did hit the bridge but luckily did not injure anybody as they were running. Finally everybody made it across. We ran about 100 more yards into a wood line. Our platoon sergeant was counting everybody as they were running in. Let's just say it sucked really bad, and all we wanted to do now was lay down and chill, but we still had 18K to move. What can I say? I should join the Air Force. As we were walking, it started to rain. Our lives quickly became even more miserable. We began our march. We stayed in the wood line trying to avoid any possibility being spotted by Russian drones, which made the movement a lot slower. Now the goal of getting there by 0300 was quickly fading away as we realized that this isn't gonna work the way we thought. We stretched pretty far, and light and noise discipline began to drop. Our platoon sergeant was running back and forth ensuring that people weren't using any lights and weren't talking out loud. We finally made it to our position at 0437 local time. It was still dark. Now we ran into another issue. We couldn't see Russians. The area was very flat. Our Latvian guide told us in broken English that there is a little house about 500 meters from us where you could see them from, but there was only limited amount of people can be on its roof. Lieutenant Rogers grabbed our CCT and a guide. He told me to drop my ruck and go with them to provide security. It felt great to be able to dump my rucksack and finally be light. The walk to the house was breeze. When we arrived, all 4 have climbed on the roof. CCT pulled his observation stuff out, along with his radio. Since we were late to the position, the F-16s were just circling around and were about to RTB because they didn't have enough fuel, so CCT had to scramble and get stuff set up.
This is 1, go ahead. 1 station, IP goal ready for check-in. Wait, 1. 6-1, proceed with check-in. Times 1. F-16, IP golden holding pattern at 1500 feet. Times 2, GBU 24 times 2. AIM 9 times 2. AIM 120. Time on station. 22 mics. Stay ready for remarks. Ready for remarks. Heavy cloud cover prevents station close visibility under 1 mile over. Copy 6201, holding at IP goal times 2 GBU 24, AIM 9, AIM 120, toss 20, mic danger close requiring high authority over. Good read back, moving to ACC, standing by for tasking. Out. IP gold. Line 2, 240 degrees. Line 3, 4650 meters. Line 4, 52 meters. Line 5, times 2 tank. T-55 in the open. Line 6, 1683 to 2574. Line 7, target marked with laser. Line 8, friendlies, 1,000 meters. Northwest of the bridge, marked with IR strobe. Line 9, request approach 040, egress 220 degrees. Stay ready for remarks, over. The ground eagle 35201. Ground eagle 35. Ground eagle 35D01 is negative on that bomb on target, listen, over. 201, ground eagle 35, what's the reason, over? Ground eagle 35, D01, we are Winchester and fuel, we need you RTB, time now, over. 201, ground eagle 35, is there any way you can still engage, over? Ground eagle 35D01, negative on bomb on target, we RTB in time now. I'll copy, over. Hey, D01, good copy, Roger. Okay, well, we're gonna have to figure something out because these guys are about to roll us over. Ground 35, ground eagle 35, D01. Hey, Roger, you need to contact ASOC so they can give you some more fire support, but I can't do anything for you, brother. 201, ground eagle 35, Roger, take your mic.
I was listening to a conversation between our CCT and Asok, and I realized just how screwed we were when Dudo 1 could not execute the target. At this point, we noticed an Orlan 10 flying over our heads, circling around over our exact location. It doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure out why we were fucking compromised. It was only a matter of time before we had artillery raining on our heads. We might have had 2 to 5 minutes to get the hell out. But it didn't even take that long. Out in the distance we noticed 2 T-72s and 2 BMP-3 with some dismounts. We figured they were looking for us. They didn't know exactly where we were, so they were moving to contact, trying to figure out our disposition. It did not take that long for them to run into our third squad, @ Bulldog 13. We started receiving direct fire on our position. Our CCT made a desperate call to Asok.
Archangel main, ground eagle 35, over. Archangel main, hey, you guys gotta give us something. Dude 01 could not complete his mission break. We gotta get something else. I'll copy. Ground eagle 35, Archangel main, Roger. Hey, we're pushing bro 01, bro 02 elements to you. ETA about 25 minutes, over. Hey, Archangel is, ground eagle 35, hey man, we ain't gonna last no 25 minutes, brother, you gotta give us something else. Do you have a JASM that you can deploy right now, over? Ground eagle 35, Archangel main, negative, there's no JASMs available at this time, over. Archangel, we don't have 25 minutes, man. You gotta give us something. Over. Hey, ground eagle 35, Archangel main, hey, you need to calm down. We're pushing bro 01, bro 02 to you. And you'll be able to task them when they get there, man. Hang in there, over. Hey, Roger, Archangel.
As he was calling, me and PL begun shooting back, because we realized they saw us, and they were shooting at us already. We picked up and ran, trying to make it to our patrol base. Chances our patrol base also compromised. We started hearing indirect, about 3 to 400 meters from us, and we also started to hear mortars out in the distance, maybe 600 m or so. I would guess Bulldog 11, which is our first squad, also got compromised. It was only a matter of time before Russians figure out where all of our positions are, and they will smoke us with artillery followed by tanks and infantry mopping up, but so far it was just artillery. We were able to get a hold of Captain Henley and his ODA. He said they were on the way, was about 100 or so let me in militias. They crossed and pick up trucks and should be there in about 5 to 10 minutes.
Bulldog 16, Green Magic. Hey, Green Magic. Bulldog 16. Hey, Roger. Hey, we're on the way with about 5 Dicks, 9-2 packs, break. We're headed to your location in K about 15 Mike, copy over. Green Magic, Bulldog 16. Hey, I would kind of stay away from phase line Glory at this time because we're taking some heavy indirect here, over. Hey, Roger, Bulldog 16. We'll push about 400 to 500 meters southwest of your position so we can dismount and you can task all the guys there, over. Break. I need you to link up with the platoon leader for Latvian militia. Break. So you can position them in order to start our defense, over. Hey, Grim Magic, it's Bulldog 16. I don't think we can do defense right now, brother. Break. We're taking some heavy fire. We need to withdraw if possible. Break. If gas doesn't show up, we're fucked. I'll copy, over. Hey, Bulldog 16, Grim Magic, good copy.
Captain Henley transmission got caught off by gunfire. We heard it out in distance. It sounded like 100 machine guns going off at the same time. We figured they run into an ambush. Firefight did not last that long. There was about 5 to 6 explosions, and then dead silence. We saw smoke out in the distance, probably from destroyed vehicles of Latvian militias and Captain Henley's team, which we'll assume all died. Finally, our CCT gets a call from a SOC. Bro 01 and Bro 02, both A-10 Thunderbolts were on station. What a relief, we thought.
Requesting Flight 3, Line 1, IT Gold, Line 2, 240 degrees, Line 3, 4650 meters, Line 4, 52 meters, Line 5, Tank column along ET2, break, Line 6, 1683, 22574, Line 7, target marked with laser, Line 8, friendlies, 3, Russian, 500 meters, southwest of the bridge, break, Line 9, request operator 040, egress, 2, 3, serial pretty much over. Hey, Magic 35, 001, go pretty much. 001, Magic, ground, break, ground, go 35. Requesting strike run, target in the open. With a battalion size element along the highway, no copy, over. Read back as follows. Heightened go 240 degrees, 4650 meters, target elevation 52 meters. Battalion tactical group lined up on the highway. 168 to 2574, mark with laser frame base 500 meters, southwest of the bridge, northeast, southwest, operates small size element near target, over. And there's your ground over 35, sorry back, you're clear hot, I think you're clear hot. Ground over 35, there's your 1, clear hot, 20 seconds. Rapid delay. Bridge 1 here, Roger, we can stay for about 3-5 more minutes. I'll copy over. Roger, copy that.
Now, that Russian armor platoon was neutralized, CCT focused on remaining Russian vehicles that were lined up on the highway, making it perfect target. At this point violets were just tearing shit up, causing more and more smoke come up in the air, making us all happy that now we may not die in this godforsaken place. At this point platoon leader requested casualty report from all the squad leaders and he was slowly receiving them. Bulldog 12 or 2nd Squad stayed silent on the net. It was because they all died. When we arrived at their battle position there was not much left to see. Their bodies would be impossible to recover at this point. It looked like Russians focused all of their artillery strikes on Bulldog 12, Bulldog 11 and Bulldog 13 suffered some minor concussions and shrapnel wounds. We weren't sure if the OTA was alive or not. We decided to check it out. Obviously they were ambushed, which means there's potentially either Spetsnaz or Russian paratroopers sitting there waiting for us, which also meant we are cut off from the west side of the Daugava River. Luckily, Bro 01 was still flying around. Our CCT tasked him with Jin running entire tree line adjacent to cluster of burning vehicles left after Captain Hindley's team was ambushed. A-10 tore that tree line up. At this point, our platoon leader ordered us to leave our rucksacks where they are, because we are going back light. Mind you, it was another 18k movement. Mogadishu Mile was a fucking cakewalk compared to this. We began slow running through the woodline in the direction of the bridge. As I was running next to our CCT, I overheard on the radio that task force commander authorized a strike on that bridge. I ordered to make it unusable for heavy armor, and that there is only 4 hours left before it get blown the fuck up. Our platoon leader overheard it from CCT. To say that we were exhausted is not to say anything. We were beyond exhausted. We had to stop a few times because a few Rangers blacked out. We finally reached the remnants of Hindley's convoy. It was clearly a very fast engagement. We didn't have time to recover anything, but I did see Captain Hindley's body. It looked like he dismounted and fought till a round struck him right in his chest. He was still laying there clinging to his M4. We kept running. We didn't have time to stop. In about 3 hours we reached the bridge. At this point most of us ditched our body armor and helmets, only carrying our weapons and magazines. It was already dark. We sprinted across the bridge and collapsed on the other side. Most of us needed to go to the hospital due to dehydration and exhaustion. I am pretty sure all of us had multiple heat strokes. Our platoon leader was a fucking stud. He didn't ditch any gear and held his head up high when we crossed, while everybody collapsed on the ground. He was contacting an AOP talk to get us evased. His radio died as he tried to get a hold of them, so he pulled his cell and called directly to Chasov Latvia HQ. Much to his surprise he was told that they thought everybody died. Despite our CCT constantly talking to Asak, they had no idea there were still Rangers on the ground. We waited for long enough to witness a 2,000-pound JDAM hit the bridge right in the middle, rendering it unusable. Shortly after, 2 Chinooks flew in to pick us up and take us back to AOP assembly area. We landed and were immediately met like heroes by medics. They were clapping their hands and patting our backs. Frankly, it was the last thing we wanted to get. Our uniforms were completely black from dirt and sweat. We looked like we just escaped a concentration camp, although it was only 24 hours. We were taken to a Latvian army hospital where some Latvian general personally thanked us. We weren't entirely sure for what. Finally, AOP commander, Major Hines, arrived at the hospital and talked to us as a group. He thanked us for what we did and also mentioned that mission was a success because Russians were stopped. Although to us it felt like we got our ass handed to us, 22 U.S. service members were left dead on the other side of the river, and it's all that mattered to us. We were completely combat ineffective. All of our gear was ditched on the other side of the river, and we needed to get new gear. We were flown to Poland to receive it from a warehouse. After that we were turned around and sent back. All in all, we spent 3 days fucking around. During that time, Stryker Battalion and 173rd arrived in Latvia. 2 Polish brigades followed then. Almost immediately, Russians shot a barrage of caliber missiles at them, killing about 100 dudes in one shot. This time, Navy responded with a 75 Tomahawks, wiping out a good portion of Russian armor that was stuck on the highways. Air Force shot a barrage of JASSMs or joint attack standoff munition at Russian artillery locations, silencing them for a few days. Task Force left a few bridges intact, in order to use them for a counterattack. As regular army began to do its thing, we were finally able to do ours. Our company was no longer under operational control of an AOB, and now we were under our own battalion. Slowly, U.S. war machine began to function after disastrous beginnings. 10th Mountain Division and 1st CAC both fell under a 3-star Corps level task force. It was about to get real serious around here. Along with Polish Army, we had a total of 12 infantry brigades, 1 fires brigade and 2 aviation brigades templated to show up. But so far, it was only wishful thinking. Russians also regrouped and rotated some of their forces on the other side. It was a bit of a stalemate for about a week before it picked back up. And picked back up it did. At this point Chasov was getting more and more beefy. 10th Special Forces Group deployed an entire battalion. Alpha Company from 2nd BAT also deployed to Latvia. Brits and Aussies also deployed a company of SAS and RSs respectively. There were also Marsoc Company just arriving to Finland. Since a bridge debacle 2 weeks ago, there was no changes to a battlefield. Russians held most of the land east of the Daugava River. Intel suggested that they rotated forces and brought fresh troops in. They began setting up minefields along the river and digging in trenches with some anti-tank obstacles. They also deployed 2 artillery brigades and an air defense brigade, a coastal artillery battalion, equipped with anti-ship stuff to prevent U.S. Marines from conducting an amphibious landing.